I struggled with it, especially the first time that
Struggled.
I went back after when I started being a nurse, right? You feel a sense of guilt, right?
Guilt.
I came into the country. I was brought by my parents, right? Sense of empathy, right? You put yourself in their shoes to say, I could easily be one of the girls that don't have access to water.
Well, hello, my people. This is Mike, your host, StemToRoots, where we plan on having this conversation and talking our way into a plan. Today, I have a special guest. I refer to as my sister. I call her Lou, but I'm sure she will introduce herself so that you guys know how to see this wonderful lady that I have in front of me. Lou, I call you that because I know you. Please introduce yourself to my people.
Oh, thank you, Mike, for having me. My name is Luanda Majo, and for those that know me, you can call me Lou. It's okay. Or anyone. You can call me
Uh-huh.
Lou. It's okay. But
And I
yeah, I'm
want more
glad to be
details,
here.
yes, where you're from, what you do, and any other thing you can share for now.
Oh, okay. I'm from Zimbabwe,
Okay.
and I currently live in Northern California. And I am an emergency room nurse. I'm a trauma nurse. That's what I was trained to do. But now I have ventured off. I'm now a clinical informaticist. So that's what I'm currently doing.
Lou, you're what? Currently doing what?
I'm a clinical informaticist.
What is that?
Short version, I am part of the people that create the systems that are used, the computer systems that are used in hospitals or in healthcare, the
Hmm.
electronic health systems um, that are used in healthcare. That's what I do. But in more detail,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I create, there's like different parts of what I do. So
Mm-hmm.
I create the workflows for the physicians. So from the time that a patient, so in the clinic setting, the time that the patient sets an appointment to the time that they get billed by the insurance company or by the insurance company or the clinic. So I'm creating the workflows of what the doctors are doing, what the nurses are doing, what the MAs are doing, what everyone is doing, including the patient. Like you may think you as a patient just go to your doctor's office, but there's actually a workflow that we created for you. We actually control what it is that you do from the time that you set the appointment or when you don't set the appointment.
And is that a
Um,
combination of different software or just
Same
applications that you
software,
use? So same
same
software,
software with multiple applications.
multiple applications, and as
Hmm.
workflow will be basically, in terms of a patient from, whether they
Hmm.
log into a portal to set an appointment, and when they get
Hmm.
there, who they see, and where their data is, where they can always come back to see labs and stuff like that. It's so wow. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
interested in knowing where an emergency room nurse, you're trained as that, shift
Uh-huh.
over to the tech side and become what you are as a professional right now. Like, how does that happen?
Um, so I have to start by giving credit to my brothers-in-law. I'm very fortunate that my sisters have married some pretty incredible guys. So my brother-in-law was actually the chief of IT at a hospital where I was a trauma nurse.
Mm,
And because he was chief operations, if you know anything about operations,
yeah.
your chief of operations literally runs everything.
Mm-hmm.
But his role was really unique in that he was chief of operations and chief of IT, which is great. You
That
should have.
combination.
It's
Mm-hmm.
nice to have that combination because
Mm-hmm.
the truth is, IT runs operations,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
everything we
Systems.
do,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's system operating. So
Mm-hmm.
I started having conversations with him about some things that I did not like some changes that he was making that I did not like. These changes did not favor me as a nurse.
As a nurse.
And yep, as a trauma nurse, right? If you know much about trauma, we're timed by everything that we do. Even something as simple as moving a printer. If you move my printer that used to be like 3 feet away from me and now it's 10 feet away from me, that affects my workflow. And so him and I would just converse back and forth about some of the changes. And then our hospital actually changed EHR systems. Yes, so we went through that transition and it did not go so well. So I kept thinking to myself, like, there's got to be an easier way to do this, like, you know. And so just from that experience and just I was always like on any boards that they had or any projects and they needed a nurse, I'd be like, sign me up.
Sign me up, where they bring the brains of somebody who is experienced something that affects them directly, just like you said. Something as small in their eyes as, hey, let's move this printer to that other place where it has more space. For you, what is important is not even the space, it's your access, because what you're doing as far as trauma goes is timely, and you can't waste 30 seconds trying to reach something. That makes a lot of sense. And so you ended up, on the tech side of things.
I ended up on the tech side of things, and by far one of the best decisions I've ever made. As much as I work with workflows, I also work on the regulatory aspect of things, right? So learning like the new law, like we have different regulatory governing bodies in healthcare. Right. So I'm also looking at the new laws that are being passed. I live in California, so laws that Gavin Newsom has passed, or that laws that the Joint Commission, the ones that keeps our hospital doors opened, what new regulatory recommendations have been passed. So I also get to do that, which is pretty cool, because I'm a clinician. I understand why they're,
and now getting into the law aspects of things. Luke, tell me, so trauma nurse, now you're on the tech side of all of this. I think I see the marriage between the two here. How long have you been? How long have you done this combined?
So I've been a nurse since 2014, and I've been clinical informatics for like 2.5 years. And I've been a trauma nurse for, 5 years. Okay. I've been doing trauma.
So is this? So basically, you've spent your entire professional life. So let's go all the way back to you coming from Zimbabwe. I want to go back to your educational background. At what level, coming from Zimbabwe, what level did you start school outside of Zimbabwe?
5th grade. Grade 5. Yeah, so we moved from Zimbabwe in 99 and we lived in Southern California. My dad got an opportunity to study his MBA, and so he went to a school in Southern California. And then at the end of grade 8, we moved to Massachusetts. So we lived in Massachusetts for my high school. I went to high school in Massachusetts.
Wow.
And then my first bachelor's is in public health. And I minored in international relations and statistics because the thought was I was going to be an epidemiologist, right? So epidemiology, it's a lot of statistics, but I wanted to look at like global epidemiology. So from there, I worked for the American Red Cross. Worked for them for a little bit, but then decided, I want to go to nursing school. So I went to nursing school in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that was pretty interesting, kind of like a culture shock a little bit. And then got my bachelor's in nursing in Albuquerque. And then a year later, I went back for a master's in healthcare systems administration. And then now I'm getting my master's in informatics, which is actually how I transitioned to my new job, because I was looking for an internship in informatics. And then I was actually offered a job. The organization felt like I had enough experience, clinical experience and my educational experience, which was, I was in a good spot for them to actually offer me a job.
So you left Zimbabwe that young, and
Hmm.
you went to school. I'll say that your entire school life, because foundationally, yes, you set a foundation in Zimbabwe, in Africa,
Hmm.
and so I'll interchange the two. When I say Zimbabwe and Africa, I'm meaning the same thing, because here we want to talk about the continent as a whole. So
Okay.
you spent childhood really like fifth grade. That's you were, there's not enough about the country that you were from, and now this is your adopted home, and you
Hmm.
went to school here. You did your entire professional life here, and you've been privileged to visit home, right,
Hmm.
Zimbabwe,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
and of recent, how often do you go home? Of recent,
I try to go like every year.
okay,
Unfortunately, this last year I didn't get to go home.
yes,
I mean, I went to Africa. I go to Africa once a year, but
yes,
this last time I was in Kenya, so I didn't get to make it down south to Zimbabwe, but
I like
I was
that.
in Kenya. Yeah.
I like that. And here's why I'm pointing that out. So
Hmm.
you've been away for 2 decades and a half, almost about 24 years.
Hmm.
So I want to clarify the fact that you're in touch and in tune, because you go home, and you know Africa well enough, to navigate places like I didn't even know you were in Kenya, so you know the continent enough. So you are aware. The things I'm curious about, after
Hmm.
you've given your entire professional life to the United States, your adopted home, brought here as a kid, to no choice of your own. Now you've seen these two places.
Hmm.
My curiosity is, do you ever think about what it would have been like to give some of this time to home, whether it's the service you provide, your knowledge and experience? Do you think about, oh wow, how would it have been like if this was something I was doing in Africa? Is that something you think about?
It is, and I actually have given time back in Africa. So, yeah,
Okay.
so we have done clinics, medical clinics, especially with in women's health, looking at our women and our girls. Um, we have done even something as simple as building multiple bathrooms for girls, right?
Hmm.
So, one of the
Hmm.
things, perfect example, a project that we did, we looked at there's a certain village in Eastern Africa where girls would stop going to school at like grades 4, 5, 6. We would
Hmm.
lose like 80% of the girls.
Hmm.
So I was doing this project with males, and it didn't click to them that at this age, the girls transition, right? Puberty, the girls start having their
Mm,
menses, and there's
mm,
one bathroom for the girls, one bathroom for the
mm,
guys. It's not enough. So is we built more bathrooms for the girls. So year one, it was like for like 5 years, they would have about like an 80% drop. We built additional bathrooms, and that next year it was a 50% drop, and the
mhm,
year after that was a 30% drop.
mhm,
So even something like that, to where sometimes we're not able to work a clinic. We've
mhm.
done clinics before, but clinics you need more time to reach more people.
Yes.
But building a bathroom, I think we did it in like 3 days. We just came with builders. So we have done work back home. We've done women's health. Like I said, our main priority has been women's health. Because once you educate a woman, you educate her kids and her husband. So
That's true.
we've
That's
yeah,
true.
we've done
Now I'm
dental
aware.
care.
Hmm. Hmm.
There you
Hmm.
go.
Hmm.
We've done a lot of dental care, like personal hygienes. We've done immunization. That's a really big one that we have done. So we do get to go home and start up some projects. We try to go once a year. One of my sisters goes about 5, 6 times a year. She's like the lead in a lot of the projects.
Hmm.
So I'm just hoping with time I will find myself at a job where I have a lot more time to where I can
A
go
lot
home
more
and
time and access and
yeah.
that flexibility. And here's something I want to capture. And this is because of your experience of, for somebody who came fifth grade that young, lived in multiple states here in the US, or you've
Hmm.
visited and worked in multiple states, so you know America enough to know. You just mentioned this bathroom issue, right? That you walked on, and this is somewhere in East Africa, you said, for something that huge, that problematic, as in like, the different genders at that age, especially at the age of puberty, sharing the same bathroom. That will never, if you've never visited Africa, or if that was not something you walked on, it's so not a problem here. It won't occur to you that it's an issue anywhere, right? So, and I mentioned that to say, what have you seen, in Africa, right? That for a fact that it's a pain point for you, if it is, right? That, and these things, whether they need to change, whether something needs to be done about them, just because you can compare it to someplace else. Can you point out any things that you feel like, need some work, if I can put it that way?
For me, it's healthcare. I don't even want to look at I want to talk about the basic needs, right? And
basic
you know what?
Needs.
Let's not even talk about healthcare, because maybe that's too high scale.
Okay.
Let's just talk about water, right? Just water. If everyone could have access to clean water, to where they can walk, we'll even say 30 minutes. If they're within 30-minute walking distance of clean water, life would be so different for our continent,
drinkable
right?
water.
Clean, drinkable water within 30 minutes. So now we're talking about people that have to walk over 2 hours to go just to get clean water. So if we don't even have clean water, that's like the most basic need. So if we can just start by getting everyone clean water, then we can talk about other basic needs like healthcare, right? That's a basic need. If you don't have access to healthcare, you're very much at a disadvantage. So I think one of the things that some of the organizations that I am part of, we've been looking at just those basic needs of water. So we've partnered up with numerous organizations around the world that are helping us to build, to get access, especially in the rural areas, to help communities get access to water.
That's fascinating, and it's just sad to hear. Here you were like, healthcare is broader. If we got into healthcare, so this conversation has been ongoing here at StemToRoots, where I've had a bunch of guests that mentioned, in talking about those things that have affected, their decision, to now go back home, follow that stem back to their root and say, hey, I left, I can come back and settle down. In fairness to themselves, and some that have started a family, and some it's just that adjustment of they've lived away from the continent long enough to say to themselves, is it fair for me to put myself at risk, healthcare-wise, to put myself at risk, where the kind of access I have in this newly adopted home, I won't have in the name of being a patriot, all in the name of loving my continent. Is it fair to myself? And that's why in touching that topic of healthcare is so broad, because people see it from different angles. Here you are having that level of access because you've done work. Not only do you do this, and hospitals, informatics, you're talking about workflow, you're talking about you were a trauma nurse and stuff. So enough about healthcare to visit Africa and be touched and moved by basic things as basic as clean drinking water. How does that affect you when you've seen both sides? I'm curious to know from a healthcare point of view.
I struggled with it, especially the first time that I went back after when I started being a nurse, right? You feel a sense of guilt, right?
Guilt.
I came into the country, I was brought by my parents, right? Sense of empathy, right? You put yourself in their shoes to say, I could easily be one of the girls that don't have access to water. But at the same time, you use those feelings to fuel yourself to say, well, what can I do to improve the situation? What can I do? Is there something I can do to help certain communities? And the truth is, there are a lot of organizations that are out there that are trying to improve the situation back home. And so some of them require money, some require your time. Your time could be you physically being there. One of the things that I've been doing is grant writing, right? That's a form of giving back to our nations, is to take the time to write up those grants, because there is money out there. But I try not to dwell too much in those feelings of guilt, because, well, yes, I do have some sense of guilt, but something needs to be done. I can't wallow in that feeling of guilt for too long. We need to get things going. Some days are better than others, but I think that, you focus of the main goal is to let's move our country, our nations forward.
So let me bring you back to America, where you are, equally as connected, because not only do you have friends, family, and colleagues and stuff that have their roots in Africa, that have seen the continent differently. And by that I mean whether they've not visited enough for no fault of their own, it could be various reasons, or they just see it as a lost cause. By that I mean, several people have mentioned to me that there are things that me as an individual, I cannot affect. Like, I can't do enough to change, because some of these things are at a level where governments and better systems should take care of. And so, they sit back and focus on individual and family. What would you say? Like, say you were sitting in front of 20 friends, and through a conversation, they give you a podium to talk to them. And this is basically the mindset. Hey, there's not much I can do, because some of these things, like access to clean drinking water, me as an individual, I can't do enough to change. This is beyond me.
So I think I would bring it down to a level that they can understand. So I come from a family of girls, Mike, you know this. We like to go to brunch. So brunch may cost, on a good day, maybe we'll go somewhere fancy, and let's say we'll spend $75 at brunch. And maybe let's say we do this every 2 months, right? So I would then say to someone how about you donate 2 brunches, right? $150. Then let's get 9 other people to donate the $150. By having $1,500, we can provide clean water within a 30-minute walking radius to about 500 people. I think that's something that we can all understand, right? I'm just asking for you to sacrifice 2 brunches, $150, and then I will show you these are the people that you've now given water to. So I'm not asking us to go in front of our governments and all that. I don't, even myself, that stuff goes over my head. I'm just asking for the little bit here that we can do. Maybe $150 is too much. Let's do $10. Let's do $10 each, and we will fill up a backpack with supplies for a kid for one of their semesters in school. So I think that's how I talk to my friends about change back home, because they can understand that, they can relate to that. We're not asking for thousands and thousands of dollars, because I don't have thousands and thousands of dollars, but I do have a couple $100 that I can sacrifice.
Yes. So I totally get that. I've written a few things here that you've mentioned, and part of the conversation we are having here at StemToRoots. People have different opinions, different experiences with being away from the continent and looking at the continent from that lens and seeing all these problems that do exist there. And sometimes it's just too much to handle. So if you're talking about masses of people having issues with accessing water, thinking about that as an individual is very, very easy to feel it, yet put it aside because it's just too massive. So you mentioned two things here that I wrote down. An individual can be here. You're not asking that, hey, get up, pack up, and leave and go supply water. But you're saying something like, you mentioned one thing, do your research, and if you're a good writer, or if you can research how to write a grant, sit down from the convenience of your internet and home and try writing a grant, see whether it bites, right? That's something you can do, and you don't need to be in Africa. Gather friends, have a friend or two, sacrifice. You gave an example of a brunch, just a meal, or just 2 days of not buying Starbucks, right? And donate that towards just specifically helping somebody access or make easier their access to clean drinking water. And that is not too much to ask. You're not telling the person to pack up and go. So that's what I picked up from what you just mentioned. And I think, practical things like that are things that we want to bring up in how somebody cannot totally crazily inconvenience themselves, if some refer to it as that, but still be able to do something from here. It's unbelievable. We're getting to halfway through this conversation already, and there's a lot more I want to go into. With you, I knew it was going to be fascinating because of what your background is and the things that you've done already. So I just want to cool off right here, right? Okay. Yeah, StemToRoots, right? Something that we do as our little break is that. We want to learn, and it doesn't have to be about Africa. It doesn't have to be about anything specific. But if there's anything you can teach me, the host of StemToRoots right now, that you think I don't know, and if I don't know it, I'll admit to not knowing it. If I know it, I'll let you know that I know it, and you will have a chance to teach me something else. And by that way, all my listeners might learn something too. Okay. Do you have anything for me? Yes.
This is one. 50% of the African population is below the age of 20.
How 50% of the African population is below
20 or below.
20 years old. 50%.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I did not know that. And even if I was to guess, I was not even going to be close. Okay? Because I can't. It's not even something that 50% of the population of Africa is under 20.
20 and below.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'm sure a lot of people just learn from that. And in the conversation that we'll have, whether it's in chat or people's feedback, I want to know who knew that, and I want to know what we can do with such, and I'll call it an advantage, okay? And sure. Where I wanted to go on this second side of our segment, now you've swayed that 100%, because now I want to start there, Lou.